And everyone, welcome back. We are back again. We're going to go over some PulseChain and Linux stuff. Going to be great. I'm in the mood to tackle these tough issues we have out there with learning Linux and PulseChain and AMAs and stuff like that. So going to get it done today. Tomorrow, Gamma DevOps, also known more recently as Gamma with 4s, replaced the A's on that, Gamma IO. The ship ways, he's a little bit of rebranding, I guess, the last few months. Big PulseChain validator guy. Learned a lot from him in the past and still continue to learn from. And we're going to talk to him about RBCs and maybe fetch Oracle and stuff like that too. So it should be great. Have him on the show tomorrow for PulseChain AMA number 30. Boy, we're at number 30. And I'm starting a new series, PulseChain and Linux, which there's some validator overlap. You know, we can still talk about that stuff too. I'm going to go over a little bit today, but it's more about just learning Linux and then again, talking PulseChain, whatever you guys want to talk about there. So without further ado, let me get my virtual machine up and running back because I paused it last time. And we'll go over a little bit of that. Boom. And we have it. So yesterday, went over some different command line stuff. Also went over MetaMask, getting that installed, switching over to PulseChain. That was pretty seamless. Literally, after you install MetaMask, running on Linux, you just go to PulseX, connect the app. It'll say you want to switch it over, and you open MetaMask there. Go through the stuff if you want. Again, this is not talking about hardware wallets, although you can install hardware wallets. You can use them on Linux. They are supported. Literally, we'll just Google real quick. We'll go to Ledger Live Linux, and you can see that you can download it. Yeah, you can download it. Whoops. Linux installation, supported Ubuntu 2004 or later. So got a hardware wallet, Ledger support. Let's Google and go to Trezor Linux. Trezor talks about their support for Linux. I think, they support all three pretty much. All right, you're gonna let me go. We're gonna do Cloudflare, misidentify me as some other thing. I don't know if we're gonna get to that, but you can just do the ... Let's see, do we have any cache results? Doesn't look like it. Anyways, does it work with Linux? Yes, it's available for Linux. So worried about hardware wallets, does it work with Linux? Don't worry about that. Looks like all the software is supported, and you plug it in, it's USB, all that stuff too. So talked about that part. Let's just look at the validator, and I can give people an idea of how to do that. So that requires you have Git installed. So if you do Git and it's not installed, this handy command here will help you out. It'll be like, sudo apt install Git. That means as a super user, use the apt program, which is the package manager for Ubuntu and a bunch of other distributions. Install is a command to give the apt command, the package manager, install Git. And Git is just a source code repository, I don't know how to explain it, tool. I mean, there's GitHub, which hosts the public repositories. There's GitLab, which it's another way of hosting public repositories. You can also edit files online. There's a whole bunch of plumbing that goes into it, but essentially it is how open source software gets distributed, updated, released. So again, you might have saw some of the PulseChain stuff, PulseChain com on GitLab. This is where validator clients and stuff are forked and held and updated and all that. So they're just using Git, and there's different commits and different repos and different places for software to exist essentially. So when you're downloading it, for example, you go to the PulseChain validator, and if you go to the docs, sorry, I'm scrolling so fast. I haven't calibrated this mouse with the virtual machine. To download scripts on your server, you need Git and then do a Git clone this repo. So where does this come from? It comes from here. So if you go to code, and then you can see I want to clone the repo. Clone just means download. It means download the latest code that's in this branch I'm in, which is main. is in the main branch. So if you copy that URL, they'll give it to you too. Or if you copy the command here fully. So go back to the VM. Oh, I'm in the VM. I get mixed up sometimes because I got different windows going on. So if we could do that, first we need to install Git. So apt install Git. It'll ask you yes. Again, you can do the -y flag to automatically say yes to this stuff. We're going to install it here. And then now that it's installed, we can do git clone, which it means just download the repo. God, shortcuts don't work either right now. And the URL. So we clone the repo. It goes in here. We change directories into the repo. I tap Pulse because that's the directory. CD into that. And then if you tap ls, which is just list, we see we have the different scripts here. And the command to do after this, I should probably update the repo to make sure they're already executable because backup client already is. But if you just do this change mode, this is change mode +X. +X means make them executable. Asterisk means everything that starts with, or in this case ends with, .sh. So every script in here, we don't need to execute the README, but every script, make it .sh. And there it is. So now that we have that, the main script here that you use for doing validators is PulseChain validator setup. So once we come here and we can run it. So // means run. And we paste in what we have here, which was PulseChain validator setup. If we do that, it'll say, okay, it requires a fee address and IP args. So if we go back to the repo, you can see that, let's see, if you go to usage, you'll see you need to enter your network fee address. So this is the priority fees address. It could be your withdrawal address. It could not be. They could be the same. But if it is separate, then enter that fee address and then your server's IP address. Now, if you're setting this up somewhere else, a different location or whatever, and you know your IP address is going to change, because that's what would happen if you change locations, ISP, stuff like that, then you can always update this later with the update IP script. And so, you know, you can change this stuff later, but make sure it is correct before you start validating. So I would get it as correct as possible right now. So you could give it anything. I always do this like null address Ethereum. Where is this? Is Arbitrum. I mean, it's probably the same length, so I'll just copy that. But usually I go to Etherscan. And so if I'm just going to run it like this, just to give you an example, I'm just going to set it to the null address. You should probably never set it like this unless you're just testing stuff, because then all your feeds would be sent there. But I'm testing stuff, so I'm going to set it to that. And then I'm just going to make up an IP address like 1, 2, 3, 4, just to show you what it looks like when the script goes through. So once you give it that, it likes it, it continues, it says PulseChain validator setup. This stuff automates most of the process, which again, that's what it's meant to do. It doesn't do 100%, but it does like 80, 90% of the stuff. Could take around 30 minutes to complete. And I'm just going to hit continue. And so now it asks me for the PLS password on step 1. So sometimes, depending on your environment and setup and stuff, it won't ask you for a password. If you have passwordless sudo, you can Google for that and it can show you all about it. But if it does, you just type in your password, hit enter, and now it will start adding all the programs. It'll start adding the different dependencies. It'll go through the steps. We can look at it here on the wiki. We'll look at the actual code, and I'll show you what it's doing. So if we go to the code, and we go to step 1. So step 1 is installing Golang. It's installing the app packages, the different packages that are needed for it to work. And they are defined here, just some like dev stuff essentially. And then once it gets to step 2, it'll add the node user, which is the user that it'll use for the clients. It will do the secret stuff between the clients. It will then it'll start setting up the actual clients themselves. So it'll start setting up Geth, start syncing the blockchain with that, and then put in all your system stuff, all your system config for the clients, so they run automatically. They'll do all that for you. Then I'll set up Lighthouse, both clients there. Although you got to wait to run the validator client to import your keys and stuff like that, or that's the way you can do it. You'll set up that configuration, and then it will open up the firewall to the rules it needs. You need to do also on the network side, because this just is on the local side. Make sure on your network firewall or gateway or security groups, whatever you're using in the cloud too, it's open on there. Otherwise it won't work. And then after that, you just follow these steps, which are well documented on the wiki as well. Generate your keys, import them, generate keys securely, I might add, import them, and do all this stuff. So again, I've documented all the different ways to generate your keys. You'll literally come here and go to after running the script, and it will explain in detail how to generate your keys, how to use Rufus to do like an ephemeral operating system, which is what we talked about in the first video when we talked about installing Ubuntu, or using another machine or a virtual machine, all this stuff, different trade-offs and stuff there. Running the client to generate keys, how to get them onto the USB, how to transfer them over the network, however you're going to do it, and then importing them as well. It goes over that and how to do it as well. So go back to here and see that, yeah, now it's, so this doesn't use Docker. A lot of other scripts and guides and stuff use Docker. This is actually building it from source, pulling everything down. That's just my preference of the way of doing things. So I'll let it run in the background and talk about this for a minute too. Yeah, any other questions on that? I'll get to the chat room here too. What's up, Betsy Crypto? Bang, 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 bang. Red Squirrel's here. Good to see you, man. Beat the squirrel first time. Yeah, usually squirrel's number one. Godfather J6 usually number one. UFO to go is usually number one too. So good to see you all there. So while that's running, what else on Linux? If you have any questions on how to do different commands and stuff, so I'll open up another terminal here. I'll go through a couple things like, so I do things really quickly too. So if I'm doing it too fast, let me know. I can slow down or otherwise. But ls, another command, you can see what is in the current directory. You do ls-al, that will give you a more detailed readout of what the ownership looks like, the permissions, who owns the files, when they were created. It'll show you the hidden files that start with the dot command, all that good stuff too. Another thing I can go over is adding SSH, which is how you remotely get into the machine. So this is something that, unless you're only going to access your validator from the terminal, from the local host with a keyboard, mouse, and monitor and stuff, if you have it on your home network, well, technically, I would isolate it on the home network and put it on a different router and like completely separate it in case it gets compromised. It doesn't affect everything else. But you can also keep it, if you do want to get access to it or open up to the internet, be careful, be very careful if you do. But if you do that, or if you have it hosted in the cloud, a lot of that stuff, you want some kind of remote management, which is the standard is SSH, either with password based off, you can add 2FA if you want, or with key based off. So if you want to install that, you can do apt install SSH. You can enter your password if it asks you to, and enter is the default yes. And once that gets installed, it'll generate your keys for your server and do all the security stuff for you. And then it will be listening on the local host. So if we do a netstat-antp and grep for port 22, it'll probably tell me netstat's not installed, another package that's handy to have installed if you want to do network troubleshooting. I'm going to do -y on this one and show you that it's accept yes as default, by default. So now I don't have to hit anything, don't need to confirm, it automatically goes through. You're running that sometimes you won't have packages installed. So you'll need to install them before you get doing that. So netstat.antp, and then let me grep listen, and then grep 22. So yeah, that will show you port 22, and that will show you that it's listening on port 22, and then whatever IP address you have, whatever local one or remote one or whatever, make sure if you open up on your firewall, you got to be able to access it if you're going to do it. Again, secure it, password based or key based or whatever you want to do there. And then there you have it. That is port 22. So now you have SSH running. I can test on the local host. So if I just do SSH localhost, that's just your local address you always have available. It will ask me, hey, do you want to trust the fingerprint? This is, again, security stuff. I'm not going to explain it. I know SSH very well, but this is like one way of comparing, like, am I talking to who I think I'm talking to? Security nerds pay attention to this, most other people ignore it, but I'm going to say yes. And then if I type in the password, log in localhost, it will log me in. And now I've SSH'd, I've did a remote connection locally into my local computer just for testing. Like, it doesn't make any sense. You wouldn't do that normally, but I just want to show you how it works. If I was on another computer on the network and this was on the same computer, or if I was in a cloud server, or if I was open the port on my firewall and was somewhere else in the world and want to access my validator, I can install SSH, give the IP address, and then either use password auth or use key-based auth. Whenever videos discussing that too. So I type exit to close that, and now local connection closed, and now I'm back at my other terminal. So I will leave that there for now and go to the chat. I have 10 VPNs running, slowing me down. That sounds very expensive and very slow as well. Yes, you keep piling on the connection, they keep tunneling. It's gonna be hard to do stuff for sure. So give me just a second. I will talk about a couple other things before, again, I'm going to go for another probably 10 minutes or so and then wrap up. And so get any questions that you have on PulseChain, Linux, or otherwise in the chat. Let's see. And okay. So another thing you may want to add, especially with the validators and stuff, let's see how that's going. Good. Okay. Yeah, it's definitely taking some time here. But okay, it's building a lighthouse. All right, great. So I can show you how to edit configs. So something I helped somebody with recently too, which was editing. If you need to edit your configuration, you usually don't need to. You can use the scripts to update this stuff. But if you want to update files in general, again, be careful, know what you're doing, or be very careful when you do it. You can use sudo. Again, some of these are only writable by a privileged user, higher privileged user like root. So super user do, this escalates your privilege to root. Pico is a very common editor, very easy to use. And you can use that to edit files. The other editors, people have their favorite ones. This is just easy to use, and I like it, so I'm going to use it. So okay, so Lighthouse Beacon hasn't been created yet. Let's try Geth. Geth should have been created. Geth. Cool. Yeah, so Geth is there. So Geth.service. So sudo pico, and then what file you want to edit. This is etc systemd system, and then Geth.service, the service file. This was created by the validator. And then this has all the commands and all the stuff that's in there automatically. And you usually don't need to edit any of this, but if something goes wrong and you have to change something, or you want to add more, you're like, hey, I want to do some fancy options or flags. Some people change the flags to do different performance stuff and all that too. Then this is where you can edit and do something and say, I don't know, ABC, TABC, I want to turn that on or something. And then once you do that, you hit Control X. Control X means exit. And then yes or no to save what you modified. And click yes. And then where to write it to. If it's the same place that's already got it in there, just hit enter. And now you've edited the file. But if you're going to edit a service file, you also need to you also need to reload the service daemon. So this is a service file, and it's running. There's a process running on the computer that is using this config file to do stuff. So normally when you edit a file, unless something else is using it, you don't need to use another program to do this. But for this one, use sudo system control daemon reload. So when you do that, then that pushes a new config to the sysd daemon, which controls all the services, and now it allows it to run. So of course, this is not one that is an actual flag. So if I ran geth now, it would show an error. I could show you that too, but I'm just going to remove it, put it back where it was, reload it again, and we're good to go there. So let's check on this. Okay, cool. It's still building this. This one could take a while, so I'm going to leave it here for now. But once it's finished, everything should finish fine, and it'll say, okay, complete the other steps, and that's when you would go and do the other steps that are on the wiki, again, that are documented here, table of contents, after running the script. And then that's where you would go generate your keys, copy, import your keys, start the validator client, which is the Lighthouse client. And then only when things are working perfectly, make your deposit. If you make your deposit and things aren't working perfectly, when you make your deposit, it's like saying, I'm ready to do work. But if you're not synced or anything like, or something's wrong or it's not working, and you're not ready to do work, then you make your deposits and you're just going to lose PLS over time. So make sure, do not make your deposits until you're completely ready, your box is fine, you're on the network, everything's working. Otherwise, you may be losing PLS when you're not working. Like you're basically saying, I'm going to do the work, and you may think you're ready, but just make sure you're ready. How can you make sure you're ready? So there's different debugging scripts on here too. So if you go here, go to debugging, and check the blockchain sync progress. You can check it here. You can say, okay, talk to the local host, ask it stuff, and you'll, because it's syncing, it's taking a lot of memory right now. So this will tell you what percentage you're at. This is where you are, this is where you're going, how far you are away from getting everything synced, and then you can make your deposits once you're completely certain everything is good. Otherwise, you maybe, again, PLS isn't worth that much right now. So if you're losing so much per day, don't stress out over it. It's fine. Just you'll eventually get it. But that's one way to check geth, and the Lighthouse, you can also check it here as well. So this turned into a PulseChain validator AMA just about. Any other question? Have any questions on Linux or stuff like that? What's up, Bets? I learned something new again. Yeah, SSH very important, and it is how you remotely access your machine. Again, make sure you have a super strong password. Make sure you are, key-based auth for beginners is a little harder to do. It is more secure overall. Pairing that with the password is great too. But password-based auth, if you're setting up yourself at home, that's going to be the default. But key-based auth is also, kind of a standard for commercial and enterprise and stuff like that. And passwords are going away eventually. Like it's basically a password as a file that nobody with any reasonable amount of compute can try to crack or brute force or figure out, unless you lose the file. So don't lose the file. You just got to hang on to a file instead of a string of characters, which is password. But if you have a really good password, you can also change the default port. I have documentation on this too. So on DigitalOcean, let me scroll up to DigitalOcean. So I document a lot of this stuff here too. So let's go to DigitalOcean Cloud Setup. So some of this, you don't have to, it's not just DigitalOcean. You can use it for your home validator too. If you want to change the default port from port 22, because a lot of people will scan the internet all day looking for weak passwords. They're actually looking to hack your computer out there. So if you want to change the default port, and this is another way to change your, so you don't have to enter a password and stuff. Excuse me. But if you want to change the default port, you can change in your SSH. I just kind of automated it here. You can manually use Pico and change it too, but I did this to make it super easy. You just have this command in it, changes, well, not that one. So that's changing from password off. That's turning password off on, which should already be on if you install Ubuntu at home. But this one, changing port 22 to port 2222 or 2020 or whatever it is, just not 22 if you want to just avoid people like trying to brute force your password all day. It fills up your logs. It's just annoying. Yeah, see this thing. I only gave it 2 gigs of memory, so it's like running a web browser and then building like the PulseChain clients is taking up all the memory. So when I'm scrolling, it's like, oh, I'm trying my best, but I'm going to freeze every once in a while. So I'll drop this, if it'll let me, I will drop this in the chat. Oops, not that one. That is the null address. Remember, I got to manually copy with the right click instead of using shortcuts on the virtual machine. Come on. It's really trying to build right now. Not that shortcut. One more time. Right click, copy. Okay. Well, maybe I can't copy between virtual machines too. Okay, I don't have copy installed, but yes, you know where to go. You know to go to Validator, Wiki, and then go to DigitalOcean setup in the table of contents. Anyways, any other questions before I jump off here? I'm gonna make this one a quick one, and then maybe later I'll pick it up and show at the end once this thing gets built. Yeah, it's gonna take a while because I only gave it 2 gigs of RAM. Validator should have like 16 gigs of RAM. I'm not gonna run this as a Validator, but I gave it 2 gigs. Hopefully, it won't die trying to build this thing. It may just take a few hours or so because it's got such a low memory. But yeah, 16 gigs minimum recommended for Validator. I'll say 32 gigs is recommended. 16 gigs is the bare minimum, and you may run into problems, maybe slower, maybe like when it's first starting up, when it's first syncing the blockchain, all that stuff. And that's actually a great command I can show you here. So let's do top. So actually, there's a graphical one that shows even more. You can see Rust here is taking up more than 50% of the CPU power right now. Firefox is taking about 30%, but 50-60% is Rust, which is compiling the Lighthouse right now. So what is the graphical top command? I almost forgot. It is graphical top command. Let me search real quick. Richard's like tweeted about using it before too. I forget sometimes. HTOP. I'm old school, so I just use top. But HTOP is the new hotness that is not installed. All right. Sudo, there we go. Sudo apt install HTOP. Install that, and that will show you a more graphical, nicer looking, prettier list of all the processes and how much memory they're using and CPU. Yeah, here you go. You guys remember Richard tweeting about this and showing screenshots and of the validated clients in the early days before mid-May 2023. So this is showing, yeah, it's the node user. So it's installed the node user. I got a PLS user, but the node user is running the clients. It's building, it's syncing and stuff. It's got Geth going here. GNOME shell is just the graphical interface, and it's showing how much memory is being used here, how much CPU is being used, all that stuff too. So you can kind of monitor. You can see. Did I get that 6 gigs of memory? Oh, that's a swap. So yeah, so around 2 gigs here, and then it has another file as a swap file, which is basically memory as a disk file. So if it runs out of memory, so it's running low. So it's like, oh, I need to use swap because I'm running out of physical memory. So I need to use this file on the system that's specifically used to do memory stuff called the swap file. And this is just like a Linux thing, how it works. Windows has a similar type of thing, but it's just designed differently here. So if you're running out of memory, it'll start using that. So why wouldn't you just create a huge file and just use all the disk space as your physical memory? Why do you need physical memory? Well, physical memory is specially designed hardware, and it's very, very fast. Swap files are slower. So that's why the computer is still working right now. It hasn't locked up. It's barely working, but it's working. But it's using a lot of swap memory. and swap it slower. So it's working, but it's gonna be slower. So anyway, that's how that works. Here's your Linux design basics of swap memory and physical memory. So this is a file on the system, and this is physical memory. It's actually virtual memory since it's a virtual machine, but Linux thinks it's physical memory, so it's using it like that. So actually it would be a little bit faster if this was a real computer, but it's a virtual machine. So I hit Q command to exit, Q for quit. And there you go, there's HTOP. Oh, that's another stream cover pruning. I need to see if mine needs to be pruned. I can't, it's really hard to cover it. Let me cover it here just to show you what it looks like. So what he's talking about, there's only 2 maintenance things you need to do that are really important for PulseChain validators, for my script setup at least. One, you need to prune geth maybe every quarter, every 6 months, every year. I don't exactly know the cadence. I don't know the sweet spot yet because I've only been running the validator for a few months now. But generally, on a regular basis, let's say every 6 months. So prune it, and I have a script to do that. And the other thing is update your clients when as needed. Now, some things are critical, some things aren't, but keeping up to date when new clients come out, you'll see it. Richard will probably tweet about it, all that stuff too, or the PulseChain devs, Brett will tweet about it. Keeping up with those 2 things are the only 2 maintenance things you need to do for the network. Make sure you're running the latest, and make sure you prune if you're running geth. If you're running Aragon, don't have to worry about it. Automatically does it. Geth doesn't. We're running geth and Lighthouse with my scripts, so that's why I don't have to worry about it. So if you just run prune, if you try to run it now, let's see. Actually, funny enough, I'm going to try to run it now, but it's probably going to tell me it doesn't need to be run. Yeah. So snapshot is not old enough. You need 128 more blocks. Process complete. Okay. Yeah, so I even put here, if you see snapshot's not old enough message, then try again later. So if it doesn't need to be pruned, it won't even run. It'll just like show you this and be like, okay, I don't need to be run. But that's what you would do. You just run that script. You can put that in a cron job and have it run regularly. You never have to touch it. You can set a validator up where you really just, as long as it has power and internet connection, you can set it up where you really don't have to do anything except update the clients every once in a while. You could automate even running this script with cron tabs and stuff. You look up Google for cron tabs. I can even cover it at some point too, I guess, but it's one way to automate it. But nothing else. Run the script every once in a while, every 6 months or something. Make sure you don't fill up your disk space. If you have 10 terabytes of storage, maybe it's not a big worry. But if you have 2, which is kind of the minimum and what a lot of people run, then you would want to run that every once in a while. If you're using my scripts and you're running the geth, which is what my scripts do. So snapshot, not old enough yet, don't need to prune it. But that's how you would do it. Just /prune geth, hit enter to continue. And it could take a few hours. Again, I've never ran it before because I haven't, but the blockchain hasn't been old enough yet, but maybe it is now. So maybe I'll try to run it mine and fully test it, but that's the gist. It's pretty simple script. And that is all we got. So I'm going to leave this running. Yeah, it's probably going to take forever to actually do the build. But I'm going to leave it running and stop it there. Thank you. Thanks everyone for tuning in, catching the replay. Appreciate you watching the video. And yeah, we'll do another one sometime. Again, tomorrow I got Gamma coming on for a PulseChain validator AMA specifically. So come back for that if you want to ask some questions or see us cover some stuff. Should be pretty good. But other than that, maybe I'll be on later today. Maybe I won't. We'll see. If I'm not, I'll see you all tomorrow. Scivive 5555. We are out.